Hello, friends. Good evening, and welcome to another session of Shooting from the Nib. We are really excited for our today's guest. We have a very special guest and a very good friend of ours, Mr. Frank of Fontoplumo Pens. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So, the honor is all ours. How you been doing, Frank?
Very well.
That's great. That's great. We are quite the whole team at FPAi is excited to have you here with us today. So it's been
I'm
some
pretty
time.
excited.
Yeah, it's been some time since we met and we last spoke. So
Sure.
good to see you. And let's get this started, Frank.
Good.
So I mean, Frank does not need any introduction, but he's the man behind the Fontoplumo pens brand, and we have seen Frank all over the internet, all over Instagram, and everywhere else.
Yeah, my
So
wife does her best to show us on Instagram.
she does some fantastic photography on Instagram.
Thank you.
So our compliments to her work. So Frank, tell us a bit about how you got into fountain pens, and
So
I
I
mean,
think
we know you've been interested in pens since your childhood, but then
yeah.
so how
So
you got into the hobby per se, and what were your pens growing up, and which are the pens which have a special place in your collection?
mhm. So I think when at preschool we have to use fountain pens. So I think from the age of 6 or 7 or so we had to use a pen. But at that time I was just using it to write and to learn to write. And I think and then after my 11th or so, I stopped using fountain pens. But when I was like 14 or so, I saw like a colorful school pen. I think it was like these cheaper Pelican pens, which were at the time with some colorful prints. So I thought, well, that's nice. I like colors, and it's a fountain pen. So well, let's give it a try. So I bought one of those, and I've been using it, and then I don't know if it was broken or I just saw a different color and I got that as well. So that's all I knew about fountain pens, like the cheaper school pens. And then a friend of mine at school, he got a gift. I think from his grandfather. It was like a sterling silver Parker. I thought, oh, that's nice. I didn't know that such pens exist as well. So I think from that time I started to be more interested in fountain pens and the difference in pens. I didn't have the budget at the time to buy such an extraordinary pen, but still, I was looking at it from a different perspective. That there are more pens than like the €1-2 school pens, and that's really, I think, that it started to grow. And then I had one pen, and then I was saving up for another. I think probably from my mid-20s or so, it really took off. And then I don't remember what like the first fancy pen was. I think it was a Waterman. I don't remember the exact. I sold those because I was getting into different pens, and I regret it now. But I mean, that's just how it goes. And then there are some pens. I don't have like a favorite pen, but there are some pens which have a special place because it is a gift. So one pen, an orange Parker. I forgot the exact model, but I had gifted from then my girlfriend, now my wife. She had been saving up for it to get me a really nice present. So I've been using it for a long time. And then a few years later, when we were in France, in Nice, that was for our 5th wedding anniversary. And then we were walking through the Place de Mont Blanc boutique, and she got me this Mont Blanc Thomas Mann, which is black, which is very unusual for me. I don't have that many black pens, but this always has a special place because of the memory when we bought it, the occasion that we bought it. So that's one of the very special pens I have. It's a beautiful pen on itself, but still the memory makes it that much more beautiful.
That's amazing, Frank. I mean, that is as romantic as a fountain pen story can get.
It's-
Fascinating. So, when you said you started using pens back in your school days or early college days, were fountain pens mandatory for you back then?
yeah, so in preschool they were, because you had to use a fountain pen to learn how to write cursive.
Right.
It's still the case in many schools in the Netherlands that they have to use a fountain pen to learn cursive writing. But that's like at least those times they were not like the better fountain pens, so they were leaking, and
Right.
so that's not really the most positive experience to learn how to use a fountain pen.
I guess that's the same everywhere here as well. I mean, not
Yeah.
not many children use fountain pens today, but then whoever did or even still do, they aren't really the best of pens. But then, that's how you get into the hobby.
True.
So moving on, Frank. I mean, we know you've been doing something else, and then you switched to fountain pens and Fontoplumo as your full-time job.
Mhm.
So, what got you into selling of fountain pens, and any inspiration for that? I mean, it's a big leap to take. So,
True. So it was not a step that I didn't want at like from today to tomorrow. So I have been. I liked fountain pens, so I bought one once in a while, um, and I just I got more and more into the hobby, and then
right,
I had a job I really liked, and I was wanted to do something more, but I didn't want to lose my to move for my job. So I spoke with my wife and said, well, I need some more challenges on a different field, but I don't know what, and I don't really want to move away from what I'm doing right now.
right.
So he said, well, you like pens, and there's a whole internet. So I mean, set up a website and sell a few pens a year, then it will pay for the internet connection, and well, you have something to do. So that's really the start. Like if I sell like 5, 10 pens a year, then I'm keeping myself busy. I have some different perspective on things, and just a nice hobby. And it really got a bit out of hand after that. So,
Well, it
in a
really
good way.
worked out, didn't it?
It's true.
Fascinating. So, around when did you get into selling only for? I mean, when did Fontoplumo become your main source of income?
It was 2 years ago. So
2 years
the
ago.
Fontoplumo
That's
business
recent.
is, yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Fontoplumo was growing, and the other job was very demanding. And I don't want to do things half. It needs to feel have a full commitment. I don't
Right.
want to feel that I didn't do something because I didn't have the time for it or because I didn't have my focus.
Correct.
So I thought, okay, this is a time I need to make a choice. Do I stay at the company I was in, or do I follow what I really love and just see how it goes? So I did that. I did what I really love and started Fontoplumo full time, and it's been working out great. So I'm very happy with the decision I did. I mean, it was a bit of a risk because you never know how it goes. Just a few months ago, and still is, but with the COVID-19, it can have a big impact on the world and the economy. So when you have a fixed job, then that's easier to get to process than when you are on your own, like when you are self-employed. But everything is good, and I'm very happy with this decision. And I love the feedback which we get from people that that we make some difference in the business, and that there's a place for us in this business.
So you covered a bit of my next question, but which was what has been your journey from the time you started selling pens, and what have been your high points and low points as a seller. I mean, you given us your background and how you got into the hobby, but as a seller and as the man behind Fontoplumo.
So when we started in 2012, there were two main brands I liked, which were Delta and Montegrappa. So I reached out to them at that time and saw if we can offer those to sell on a web shop, which they fortunately agreed to. And then it's really it grew from there. So I think Kaweco was one of the next pens we introduced, which at that time was still fairly unknown brand, but with a very nice thought behind it in the design, and a very pocket friendly pen, and it's also not too expensive. So I think that was still, it took some work to get that going, but I think that was a very good addition to the assortment, and it just grew from there. So even we do reviews once in a while, like, okay, what's next on our plan? So what do we want to do? And it really takes me by surprise sometimes that, well, I didn't think about doing this, like one step, like I didn't even consider it yet for maybe 3 years, and now we're already doing it. So sometimes it's moving faster than I think, but that's what I love as well. I'd like to have things keep on going and keep evolving. And I think I forgot some of your questions, so if you can repeat some, I think.
No, so I think you covered most of it, but we just
Okay.
wanted to know, like, so you told us about your high points. Have you had any low points?
There are always points like not really low, like very bad, but there's always a case where you think, well, you're in a discussion with a customer, and you think, well, that doesn't really feel well. And then I take it to myself, and but then I try to learn from it. Like, okay, what went wrong, or what was this point of view, and then I take what I can to learn, and then I try to forget it, because I really want to focus on the positive things, not keep hanging in the negative.
I bet you don't have too many complaints, Frank.
Fortunately not. But there's always something.
I can attest to your service. Speaking of Kaweco pens, my first Kaweco was from you, and as luck would have it, it got lost, and you were very graceful in replacing the pen for us, for absolutely no fault of yours. So thank you so much for that. And that was the testament of your level of service and commitment, and that was a very good start to our relationship.
And so I'm very happy I did now.
Yes. Right. So, coming to my next question, Frank, how have you seen the fountain pen market evolve throughout your journey from the time you started to where you are now? Because you have a fairly international presence now. And
Sure.
what has been your observation, and what do you feel about the evolution of the market? So,
I think it's growing, it's getting more mature. I mean, it was already getting mature. So I think there was like a downturn in pen usage. I don't know the exact date, but maybe 10, 15 years ago. Maybe 20. Don't pin me down on a date, but I think it's evolving now again, as people, they are using digital devices all the time, and then when they use a pen, they want to use something nice, either a nice fountain pen or a nice ballpoint, which doesn't mean expensive, but just something which does not come in a box of 100. So you can choose your color, choose the design you like, and then have something special for you, which you enjoy using. So there are more people, like in all ages, like from 10 to 100 maybe, coming to the shop or online and say, well, I've not been really using pens anymore, but I think it's nice. There's something special, and when I do it, I want to do it with something special, which says like, okay, this is me. I mean, this is not like the pen the company bought for me, but this is a pen I chose. I went to a store or went online and did some research, and I thought, well, this really speaks who I am. I think this is becoming more of a thing when using a pen. And also the collection market has been growing since Mont Blanc, the writer's edition, the first Hemingway, which is going over the top now, and some more pens which are special editions, which are really sought after. So there's a big collection market as well, not just a users market. And the same for the Lamy Safari, which they bring out each year. The candy colors this year, I mean, I can't speak for every seller around the world, but for us, this was crazy. I mean, that was very popular pen. So it seems like more and more people start to be collecting pens and using pens.
The colorways seem to be very popular, be it Lamy or Kaweco's or the Leonardo's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fascinating, Frank. And like you said, I couldn't underscore it more. Like the a personal touch, be it at a shop or online, but the personal attention really makes the purchase special. So
And that's what I try to do. I mean, if someone has a
yeah,
question, so we introduced the chat function, I think last year or so. And I see it really helps people out. They have a question, and then when they have more, you start to also to bond. I mean, if you chat with the person a few times, then you know his preferences, and sometimes you know something about what's going on, and then you just start to feel what the person really is looking for, and that helps also with making decisions in pen buying or not buying. I mean, if that's the conclusion as well. I mean, that's important.
right. That's great, Frank. Thank you for that answer, Frank. And we have my friend Mihir here with us today, who will run us through the next further part of the session. Thank you so much, Frank. And I'll
Thank you
see you.
too.
Hello, Frank.
Hi, Mir.
So nice to see you after so many months. I mean, the last time we interacted was back in March when you were here in Mumbai, and we had dinner and had drinks a couple of nights. Those were fun times, and I hope that we could go back to having those fun times again. It
True.
was really interesting for me. I have spoken about this several times, and I think I will continue to do so until I attend my second pen show. But I've only attended one pen show till now. That was the San Francisco Pen Show in 2016, and that was a wonderful experience. It was just fabulous. I was just a year into the hobby, and going there and attending that was fabulous. I was actually supposed to attend the same San Francisco Pen Show this year, but obviously I had to cancel my US trip, and then I found out 2 days ago that they have cancelled the SF Pen Show this year. But then going abroad and meeting different people, there were people from so many different parts of the US and from other countries as well. uh, it was my first experience getting my nib worked upon by Dan Smith and then Mr. Masuyama-san. So it was a fabulous experience. Now, I'm sure that you have probably now interacted with people, customers from all over the world. And in March, you visited India and interacted with so many of us, not just from Mumbai, but from Delhi as well, from Kolkata as well, from different cities of Mumbai. What was your experience? I mean, you must have interacted with fountain pen uh, aficionados or enthusiasts from so many different countries. What has been your experience till now? Do you find that the enthusiasts are the same everywhere? Do you find that they are different in their approach, in their thinking, or do they consider this hobby to be elitist, or do they consider this hobby to be very common? What has been your experience?
I think this is, at least my point of view, is not so much related to countries. There are people in every country who love the hobby and who like to talk about it, um, to try different pens. And there are also people in every country who think, well, a fountain pen, really? What? I have my 2 cents biro here, so I mean, who cares? And I think that's the same in every country. I don't really see that much differences on a country basis. I mean, we're just all people who like to hang out, like to talk about pens, like to use a pen. And I think there are much more similarities than there are differences. Uh, yeah, to be honest, I couldn't mention something which like divides one country to the other, what makes a difference. Um, I think I believe in one people and one culture. So I mean, there are differences in background wise, but I don't see differences in pen use or love for the pens. Honestly,
I would completely agree with you over there. Not just my experience during the San Francisco Pen Show, But since you mentioned Nice, Nice is very close to my heart. I used to live there. I lived in Nice for about 2 years
Wow.
back in 2012 and 2011 and 2012, and that was a fantastic experience. I had gone back to Nice in 2015, and there is a fountain pen store called Kreuzefis. I don't know if you visited Kreuzefis when you had been there, but I went there and I was looking around the store. And interestingly enough, the owner of the store, I don't remember the name of the lady right now, but we just started talking about fountain pens, and I was so new into the hobby. I think I had bought my fountain pen. So I was there in October 2015, and I had bought my first fountain pen in August 2015.
Wow.
So 2 months into the hobby, and I visited the store and I was asking her what I should, and she gave me a wonderful piece of advice about fountain pen collecting. And she said that if you're collecting, you should always have some kind of a theme to your collection. Don't just accumulate everything.
Mm.
Anyway, that although that piece of advice was so sound, I never really followed that, and I just kept on accumulating. But I have certain preferences now. But there was one thing I wish I had done at that time. She had offered me a Waterman Le Mans 100 in wood from her own collection,
Wow.
and she said I can give that to you. But for me at that time, thinking about a 400 euro pen was something I had not even imagined or considered, because, like I said, I had bought my first pen barely 2 months ago.
Mhm.
But now looking back on it, I wish I had just spent those 400 euros, and I would have had such a wonderful pen in my collection. Because she said that I'm happy to start you off with a nice pen, and the Le Mans 100s are so hard to come by in good condition. And this was even a special edition one in wood. So it was very interesting. But anyway, I hope I can get that one day. But so that kind of brings me to my next question. So you have now said that you haven't seen really a change in the thought process when it comes to how people behave when it comes to fountain pens. But I'm going a bit into statistics right now. But do you find that there are certain preferences for certain kinds of pens from different parts of the world? So maybe Indians might have different preferences, or Japanese might have different preferences, or Americans might have different. Have you found that in your in your business?
So I think generally speaking, yes, but then I was quite surprised this year. Like so, in my mind, Asia always tended more to the fine, extra fine nib sizes, and now this year they go more into medium board or even double board nibs. So that threw me off a bit. Like, oh, what's going on? I mean, shouldn't you buy extra fine or fine instead of a board or double board? So that's so from what I thought that was like a given is changing, and then maybe some other countries that they used to go for medium or board now go to the more fine or extra fine. So that's really like kind of funny how things are set in my head, and then you're proven wrong because things are evolving and people start to use pens for uh, different different things, and then they just go from an extra fine to a double board or a triple board, or like Scriba with the flex. There was some flex, but I think Scriba really did a good thing with bringing back a very good flex pen. And also flex pens get more and more demands, and people more ask for flex pens as well, from in all budgets. So so what I thought always was like that's a given. It's changing and it's always evolving. So I think it's not possible anymore to think, okay, it's always been like that, and that's how it will be for the next 10, 15, 20, 100 years. So it's constantly changing. And also in colors, I mean, I don't see one color going better than another color in some geographies. It's more like, and I think also like people are moving. So, I mean, if I'm Dutch, doesn't mean that all people here are white with beards and glasses. I mean, there's a very big multicultural population here, and they all have different preferences. And my wife has different preferences than I have. So, I mean, it's always changing and evolving, and there's so many people everywhere that I think you cannot speak about geographies anymore because everyone is moving everywhere.
Right. But then that has been a really interesting answer, because I did not expect that certain people would have the preferences that you just talked about. Now, going on to the next question, but before I go on to the next question, I would really like to understand what the name Fontoplumo actually means.
So it means fountain pen. It's in Esperanto. So when we were thinking, so we knew I was going to make a business in pens, I was going to do a hobby in pens. It was not a business at the time; it was just a hobby. So then I thought, okay, what's a name everyone can pronounce? Like vulpen. I mean, this is Dutch for fountain pen. That's not really easy for if you're not Dutch. And then English. I mean, that can be some pronunciation difference as well all over the world. So I thought, well, what's a common language? So Esperanto is not a language everyone speaks, or hardly anyone speaks, but at least the pronunciation is different, is easy. So because it has so many influences from so many different languages, so it's recognizable in some part, and it's relatively easy to pronounce. I think I just heard one person speaking it differently than I thought it should be pronounced. So it apparently is very easy to pronounce it and to read it, and that was the main thing. And it means fountain pen. So I mean that's what we're all about. So.
Wonderful. Well, I just like to understand. So you said the language is Esperanto. I've not heard of this language. Where is this from?
So there was I don't know the exact history, but there was a person who knew a lot of languages, and whose idea it was to have one common language across the globe or for Europe. I'm not so sure. So we thought, okay, how can we get one common language which everyone understands and it's easy to pronounce? So we combined Portuguese, Spanish, Latin languages, and he just put it in a melting pot, and then Esperanto came out. I mean, it's a bit more complicated than I just explained, but it was his idea to have one common language, and he combined some of the mother languages and just combine them to have a language which could be good for anyone, really.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I had no idea about this language.
I didn't. Maybe I made some big mistakes. I'm not sure. But at least that's
don't worry. I won't hold you to it. But it was definitely very interesting to learn about that. And just a bit of information to the viewers right now. You can definitely put down and write down your questions in the live comment section. There will be a time at the end of the interview where we will take up the questions from the audiences. Thank you so much. Now the next question, Frank, is for all the people who are in the hobby. Dutch fountain pen sellers has become so common and so popular. So I wanted to understand, what do you attribute this popularity to? Because there are so many people, you and there are 2, 3 other sellers who have really created a name for themselves in service and quality and reasonable prices. So what do you think has led to this popularity of Dutch sellers in particular in the international market?
I think one thing is that internet availability was good here in the Netherlands very quickly, and we are a nation which typically looks beyond borders, and and it is very easy to adapt to new technologies. So speaking about fountain pens and technologies, that may be a bit like a contrast. But I think, and we are a trade nation, so historically, the Netherlands always traded across borders, and that combined with good availability of internet and a good logistics network across the country, I think really helps of getting some very good shops set up and be successful in what we're doing. That plus maybe some coincidence, but I think those things like the internet, the logistics network, and the trade mind really helps or sets us apart from having so many of shops here relative to how small we are.
And that has actually given so much of ease to all the buyers around the world to acquire fountain pens and inks and all the accessories. It has made it so much easier. The level of service, and I hope you won't mind me also praising the other retailers, because I always believe that a good competitive market actually helps the market evolve and grow. And it just has created a name for all the Dutch sellers that, okay, these people stand for good quality, good service, and reasonable prices. I have never heard of anybody complaining, okay, I got this thing from this person and I've had problems with it and that person didn't help out. It has always been the feedback that, okay, I got it, or I faced some problems and then that person resolved it. So kudos to all of you doing a wonderful job out there. Now, talking about customers, uh, I believe you started back several years ago, actually. I think in 2012, you started your journey, so to say. It has been about 8 years right now, and I'm sure you must have encountered thousands of customers. Do you think you could talk about some extreme customers? The best, the worst, of course, we are not really looking for the names, but just some interesting experiences or strange experiences that you may have had.
So there's always, I don't know, there's always the hobby being so small and specific. Some customers become friends and you start chatting with them on a daily or weekly or bi-weekly basis, and just ask, hey, how's it going? Is everything okay? Or what have you been up to? Or what pen did you get or not get? So I think it's very fun to sell pens, of course, but I mean to have to become friends with people. Like when I was in Mumbai this year, I mean, it felt like being with friends and having a really good time rather than anything else. And I think that's really a very positive thing I get from doing this. Like be surrounded with mostly positive people and just people who try to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And then for worse things, like I said before, there are some cases which you think, really, does it have to be that way? And then I try to learn from it and say, okay, this is, yeah, so I just try to learn from those situations and then move past it and forget about it. Sometimes it, of course, comes up and yeah, that was not a good situation, and it can be my fault or anything else. I just try to learn from it and to not repeat it, that it doesn't happen again. And strange experiences. Well, one funny thing really was there was a guy who texted me. He said, "Well, you know, I'm in Schiphol for 9 hours. Can I come to this Dell shop just to look around on a Sunday, which we're not open?" Well, okay, well, you mean, sure, I will be there Sunday, and then we can meet and just have a nice conversation. And then, so he came. He was lost, and I took my bike and went for him. I mean, it was just a few hundred meters, but I mean, still, it was, he couldn't find the way. So I picked him up at where he was, and we went to the shop, and then since then we became friends. So I mean, it's funny how things go. Like getting a text from, oh, are you open on Sunday? You want to come because I'm at Schiphol and have 9 hours to spare, and then sure, and then after like you become friends and you're chatting with each other about how the dogs, how the kids, how's life, and that's funny. That's really what I enjoy in it.
I'm sure that must have been a really interesting experience for you.
Yeah.
To meet somebody like this and then become friends like that. The next question actually is again, how do you handle conflicts with your customers? Do you accept the principle that the customer is always right?
So out of a principle, I don't think the customer is always right. I try to be accommodating, and I try to help out whenever I can. But I mean, so I try to do whatever I can to make the person happy. And whenever, as long as we can have like a good conversation, explain to each other what's going on, what's wrong, and how we can make it better. Okay, then I'm always happy to help it out. When it's my fault, of course, we will always do whatever we can. But if it becomes unreasonable, then I think, well, okay. I mean, there are limits to what always right means. So it needs to be within reasons for everyone. And when you're friendly, then I can be more accommodating to when people start out to be very aggressive from the get-go. So I mean, it's still a person's business. So is it always right? But I mean, we always try to do the right thing.
Although I'm not really in the kind of business that you're in, I'm a lawyer, and
I can't hear you right now.
Oh, you can't?
Oh, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, although I'm not in the business or the kind of business that you're in, I'm a lawyer, so I can't really have the liberty of saying that my customer or my client is always right. But I have to project that. I have to defend that before the honorable court. But having said that, it is always a difficult line to walk on. I used to work in the hospitality industry. I used to work in hotels back in the day. And even at that time, the company that I used to work for, they had this policy of ensuring or training all their employees by saying that the customer is always right and you should always treat it as that. That is a very difficult thing to do. I have had several interesting, worse, bad, horrible experiences walking that really fine line. So I can very well imagine how difficult it must be for you as well. But I think I would agree with the approach that you have chosen, where you try everything you can to make the customer happy, but there is always a limit to how far you can go.
Yeah. And yeah, true.
Right. Now moving away from service a bit, let's look at the uniqueness of Fontoplumo. And you're one of the few sellers or people who have collaborated with the likes of Conid and Kaweco, and you have had your own special editions. Can you talk a little bit about those collaborations? Because I'm sure there are so many people really interested to know about how those came about. What was the idea? What was the kind of interaction that you had with them? Obviously, we are not looking for anything that is confidential, but anything interesting that you could share with the viewers.
I think with Conid, one event which we are very proud of, we met Werner and Francis and Jonas were there as well. And I think in 2014, 2015 at the Cologne Pen Show, we had a table there to sell pens to the visitors, and then they were just on the table behind us. I didn't know Conid before that day, but he had a pen on the table. And I'm not so much into transparent demonstrator pens or black pens, But he had one pen on the table that, well, that's something very pretty, and that's really, I was in love with the pen from the start. So, but it was not a very cheap pen, so I didn't say, well, let's get it. So I think about it the whole day, and through the day when there was not someone at the table, I moved around and talked to Werner. What's the pen? What's it all about? And then stood up, took it in my hand, had a check. And in the end of the day, I couldn't go home without a pen. So I mean, it was impossible to go home without that pen in my pocket. So that was the start of Conid and meeting Werner and his team and talking with him. And I think then a year or so later they had like a Conid day where they invite people to come over and just see the production, have a check of the products. Sorry, and just chat with each other. So we went there, and so I'm having the mystery mixed up a bit. So, and then at least another time I was there with my wife Agatha, and I think it was maybe the third or the fourth time we met. And I said, well, it would be nice if we get a special edition for our shop. I mean, we make beautiful pens, but you know, it's a nice thing to promote the brand just beyond the Conid page. So we chatted a bit about it, and from there the Conid Monarch started out. The king size was the first pen that came, and it had a really good response. So just for the people who don't, this is the Conid king size. This is the orange ebonite king size bulk filler. So where it used to be transparent or black, we thought, well, let's make it pop it out and get an orange one, because I like colors. So I mean, and orange is the Dutch color, so why not get a Dutch colored Conid? And that really started to get traction. So we also had the KWZ ink to go with it, the Monarch ink, which is sold out now. But I mean, with the introduction, we had the pen paired with the ink. And then a few years later, we got the Minimalistica. I was driving to Conid, and I thought, well, it would be nice to get a pen which is like a bit more pleasantly priced and more affordable, at least to a bigger group. And I spoke with Werner and Jonas and thought, well, why not get a transparent king size with just the orange ends? I go, really? Yeah, I think it will be nice. Oh, sure, okay, let's do that. And it became hugely popular. I mean, it's a beautiful pen, which just has two tiny pieces of orange, which still make it very special. At least I think it still makes it very special. And then for the Kawecos, we had a few very small runs of Kawecos, which they still had around. There was a chocolate one and a caramel one, cappuccino one, and the very the yellow cap, which the very light yellow. And then we thought, well, let's see if we can do a Fontoplumo Kaweco. So we decided on the yellow, but just a hint darker than the yellow cap. And it was hugely popular. I mean, it was a big surprise how popular that became. And it just all goes from ideas like, let's see if we can do that. And then it becomes, they were all good decisions, let's say it like that.
That was a really interesting story, Frank. Are you able to hear me?
I can't hear you.
Okay.
No.
Are you able to hear me now?
No. A tiny bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's coming now.
Okay, I'll just take off this altogether.
Okay.
All right. So that was a really interesting story. I really hope I could get one of your special collections, special editions soon. There are questions about some other special editions that you might have coming up, so be prepared for those questions.
Okay.
Right. So those are the questions that I had in my mind. Right. And then the next person to come up and ask you the questions will be Sudhir. Right. So please welcome Sudhir. Hi, Sudhir.
Hi, Sudhir.
Hi Mir, hi Frank. How are you today evening?
Very good. And you?
Couldn't be better. Yeah. Okay. Franks, it was lovely listening to you speak about your journey, how you started. Of course, I remember having this conversation with you earlier when you were down here, and that was an amazing time that we had. So before I get on to the question, or maybe I will make this the first question. Uh, you know that we are all part of this association called the Fountain Pen Association of India. You are aware of it. You are aware of what we do. In fact, when you came down, you were nice enough to get us this. It's a lovely thing. It's my EDC, if you can call it that. I
Cool.
always have that in my bag. Okay. So my question to you is, how do you see, or what do you see the role of these associations in this hobby? What can we do? See, we are a non-profit organization. All we are doing is trying to build up the hobby, trying to get more people into the hobby, get more people used to writing, first writing and then writing with fountain pens, inks, and good quality paper. So what what else, or how do you think we can best do it, and what else can we do? What would be your suggestions for us?
I think nowadays a lot of people who are new to the hobby try to do research online and checking where they can get information from. So having an organization which can help out in providing information of where to be locally, where is the best place to go, or if you want a pen like that, I mean, what are the options of getting such thing within the range you're looking for. So I think it really helps out of people, like even like a discussion like this um, helps people getting ideas of, okay, I need to position, how can I guess what my starter pen should be or can be, and people with experience are best of guiding someone in how to find something which suits them, pen, paper, ink. Starting a collection or just leaving it at one pen or restoring a pen, getting an old pen and trying to fix it. I think that's really where organizations like yours stand out, of being this knowledge base of people who care and care enough to help you out and to just be helpful.
I see. Uh, yes, thanks for that, Frank. And yes, that's why we started this association. In fact, that's why we are also doing this series of live sessions discussing with different kind of people in terms of their experiences and what people can learn from just listening to others talk. I mean, it does not have to be some kind of knowledge or education being imparted all the time. It could be just a discussion from where people could take away maybe 3 or 4 points, or maybe even 1 or 2 points. I get to personally learn a lot, even though I'm one of the hosts of the session. But I every session has left me with something, 1 or 2 points where I'm thinking, this is interesting. I need to think more about it. Right. So, Frank, you told Mihir and the audience about the two uh, collaborations that you had with Conid and with Kaweco. My next question to you is, what is next? I mean, if you can, if you're in a position, if you can reveal that, if it's not confidential, what can we expect from Fontoplumo?
So we had a yellow Leonardo a few years back in the Memento Zero.
Yes,
It was
yes.
quite limited, I think, to 15 pieces per color. So maybe there will be something else like this. Who knows?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. That's very exciting.
And there will be something
And
small as well. But that probably next week there will be something tiny. A tiny
okay,
release.
cool. Okay, cool. That's nice to know. But it's really interesting because yes, we see normally what happens is when we see a collaboration, it's usually between two big brands, right? It's a collaboration between big brand A and big brand B. Very rarely do we see a collaboration where mm, somebody like you who has an online presence and a shop goes and talks to the pen makers and comes back and says, okay, let's do this specific, a shop exclusive. Happens a lot in Japan. I have not seen it happen as much in other parts of the world, but maybe that could be my limited knowledge. Maybe it's happening and I'm not aware of it. Okay.
It
uh,
seems to
uh,
be getting more lately. I think, at least my feeling is, the last few years there are more shop exclusive than there were before.
yes, it's definitely a trend that we are seeing happening in the last couple of years. You're right, absolutely. So, Frank, another question, and I don't know if do you have any plans of opening another branch of Fontoplumo? I remember we discussed why don't you have a branch of Fontoplumo in Mumbai here when you were down here. So, any plans like that?
No plans, but if there are volunteers, I mean, I'm, I'm just joking. So, no, we just opened 2 years ago the Delft shop. And I mean, things are evolving fast sometimes. So sometimes you think, well, that will never happen. And the next day you're thinking, oh, maybe that should happen. So there are no plans now. I don't know if there will be in the future.
Okay, okay, got it, got it. So Fontoplumo, just my message to the audience would be: you can always go to Fontoplumo website and get stuff. You can always go to or talk directly to Frank, and he's happy to talk with us and ship the pens and work things out. But if I'm ever in Netherlands in Delft, I am going to make a trip down to Fontoplumo,
I'm
and
sure.
just for the benefit of our viewers, if any of you are down there, my request, and if you like dogs, my request to you would be to go on a Saturday, because that is the day on which Frank's cocker spaniel Oscar accompanies him to the shop. And I remember him telling me that there are a lot of people who come there on the shop on Saturdays just because Oscar is there, right, Frank?
True. Then they are disappointed if he's not there. Then, oh, where's Oscar? I mean, I'm coming here to see Oscar. I mean, who cares about pens? I want to see the dog. Oh, sorry, you just left home. I mean, it's really funny. He's so adorable. People love him. Yeah.
I know pups are adorable, and that's what I'm going to do. If I'm there, I'll let you know in advance so that we can
Please
come there
do.
and meet up with not just you but also Oscar. That's very nice. Okay, Frank, I want to also ask you a personal question, because again, I'm aware a little bit about the fact that you like watches in addition to fountain pens. So, what other hobbies, what other rabbit holes are you into apart from fountain pens?
So, as you like fountain pens, and then as you mentioned the watches, I think those are two big enough rabbit holes to be too limited to that. So I do love watches, yeah. So um, uh, I was searching for quite a bit of time for a watch I really liked. So I had a Meistersinger a few years back, which is like a single-handed German-made watch. And then
Yes.
I came across on Instagram. I came across with a Delft watchmaker called Hendrix. I thought, oh, that's a nice. It's made in Delft. I mean, that's a beautiful watch, and it's made in Delft. So let's go and see. Um, he makes 3D printed watches, which are like extraordinary. I really love them. So getting one last year for a very special occasion, then I thought, well, there's a special occasion this year, I think. So I need to get another one. So that's that got me in a bit of trouble with spending. So I mean, I think those two, it's like a very nice rabbit hole, and I think it's enough for those just those two.
Yeah, and they can be very expensive. Both of them put together,
Yeah.
they can be very deep rabbit holes because it's something which I share with you. I mean, I remember talking about watches. Okay, so Frank, those were my set of questions that I had. Tried to keep it a little light-hearted. We will now check and for questions from the audience, and if I believe we have a little more time, right? We can take a few questions from the audience if you don't mind.
Of course, no, we'll be happy to.
Okay. So while we wait for the first question to appear on screen, there was one question from Kunal Gupta which says, Frank, which is the most expensive pen you ever sold?
That would be Monte Grappas in silver, which retail for about 4,000 euros.
Okay.
So
Right.
that's still, I mean, they are beautiful pens and they can go pretty steep quite quickly. And that's also a price which I'm still like comfortable in having and selling without getting into, well,
Something that's too extreme.
yeah,
We have this
exactly.
question. Yeah. The next question comes from Mr. Subramaniam of ASA Pens. What's your opinion about Indian pens?
So when I was in Mumbai early this year, I of course saw a lot of Indian pens, and I think there's a good market for it. I didn't start offering pens yet. As I'm looking for what's the best way to introduce them, at least from my point of view. I mean, there's already a big market for it, but I'm just thinking, okay, how can I fit this to the Fontoplumo business line? And I think it's going from being very conservative to being more innovative in filling systems, in designs. So with my limited knowledge of Indian pens, I already see that it's evolving and becoming more and more fascinating and more professional. And that's really what I really love to see. And who knows, maybe there will be a Fontoplumo Indian pen one day as well. But it's I'm very happy to see that it's evolving more and more. That is attention for details, attention for different mechanics, different designs. I'm very happy to see that.
So thank you, Frank. I'm sure the Indian pen makers are feeling good that this is a perception of people who are not. I mean, see, we buy a lot of Indian pens ourselves, and like any other country, we are also patriotic, and we think this is the best in the world. So, but it's good when we hear something similar from. I mean, when we hear an objective viewpoint, let me just put it like that.
Okay.
Right, thank you. And I think you also answered in another question that somebody had, which was about any collaboration. You did say that who knows, maybe we may have a collaboration in future with a specific Fontoplumo Indian pen.
So there's nothing in the pipeline now, but I mean,
Okay.
it's on my radar. I mean, India, there are a lot of good makers in India. So yeah.
Yeah, we are going to keep our fingers crossed and hope for the okay. Cool. The next question comes from Anish Menon. Frank, he asks whether there are any custom pen makers in the Netherlands.
Not that I know of. There will be people having a lab at home and just making one or two pens for themselves, but not professionally that I know of. Closest I know is Belgium, Conid, and I don't know why, but just I don't know of any Dutch pen maker.
I see. Okay, that is interesting. And then there's a question from Shankar Iyer, and which asks whether there are any plans for accelerated delivery by Conid for Fontoplumo. I think one of the issues that people have with Conid is the time that they take. They do a brilliant job. I mean, the pens are just fantastic. Engineering marvels is what I would call them. But the timelines, I think, is what people would like to see a little bit of improvement.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that. I mean, it's taking, so they are close now for new orders to get the old backlog solved so they can make a fresh start. So I believe that once they get back up, then there will be stock available. Maybe not for immediate shipping, but at least for 1-2 week lead time, which is very reasonable. But now it's just getting out of hand a bit. But I think, and I always love to have stock. I mean, I want to get the Monarch pens in stock as well. But I mean, as soon as they arrive, then they're gone because there's just little delivery and there are many people who want one. So, but I think that once they are back and up and running, then it will be much better than it was before.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Okay, let us see. Shreyansh Patil asks, "Hello Frank, what's your favorite pen and ink combo?"
Wow. Oh. So there are two issues. I don't have a favorite pen and I don't have a favorite ink. So
Okay.
one ink I always use a lot is like nearly always have one pen inked with a very simple blue, which was a Monte Grappa blue, or like a Visconti blue or Mont Blanc blue, just a basic royal blue color. That's one I always have inked. And then otherwise it just depends on the mood I have when taking a new pen out and filling it. So it's, am I a bit like colorful today? Then I want a very colorful pen with very contrasting ink. And if I'm saying, well, a bit more conservative, then it will be like something more down to like less colorful.
Okay, so depends on your mood, depends on the occasion, and
that's the advantage of having more pens.
Yeah. So the next question which comes from Manoj is a good segue into this question. So which pens are you using now? What do you have inked right now?
So what I have inked right now is a Kaweco Sport, the Coral, which is custom tuned in India to an architect at the pen show. And then I have inked a Leonardo Speranza, so then the pen for which they help to donate also to the COVID virus. I have inked a Pelican and there was something else. An Aurora Oceana.
Oh, okay. That's a lovely pen.
It is, yes.
It's a beautiful pen. Right. So let's now move down to this question from Dhruv Sood. How about an Art Deco pen in orange ebonite?
So we had one.
Okay.
This is like this, maybe not too orange. This is terracotta one, but the too orange, that would be nice. It's
yeah.
Who knows?
A future product idea for you, maybe.
Definitely, yeah. Very good idea. Yeah, I love orange and I love ebonite. So, and I love the Leonardo Art Deco. So it's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, good. So we have a set of 3 questions from Nikhil Raj. Starts with what are your favorite brands, and then goes down into what are your favorite pens from those brands, and then one question which I would say is slightly away from it: are you a vintage pen user or a modern pen user?
So the last one is easiest to answer for me. I'm more a modern pen user.
Okay.
And then what are my favorite brands? So then I like, in general speaking, I like Italian pens like Leonardo, Monte Grappa, Aurora, because they have some flair to the designs. I cannot put a nail to it, but you just have something Italian, like there's a love of life in the pens.
Okay.
And the favorite Leonardo is the Momento Zero. That's the first one, and I think it's very classical, going back to the early last century in design. From the Monte Grappa, I like most the Extra Otto. It's not a very good pen. And then more into the affordable range, I always have a Kaweco Sport with me, either the plastic one or brass one or aluminum one, because they're easy to carry around, very easy to use.
Okay. So, Frank, I'm going to insert my own question here, which is, have you ever thought about a Fontoplumo pen? Which is made specifically for Fontoplumo, branded Fontoplumo, not a collaboration, your own
Yes,
pen.
I did think about it. Yes,
Okay.
that's all I can say right now.
Okay.
It's in my head.
Okay. I hope you're still thinking about it for the future.
Me too.
Okay. Right, Frank. Uh, okay. This is a question from Sanjeev Sharma about the Fontoplumo FPAi pen cases. Now, Sanjeev ji, to not put Frank in a spot here, the delay
Mhm.
is from our side, and mostly because of the COVID-19 situation, because we still don't have the deliveries happening. It's still under discussion with Frank, and believe me, we want to get it done as much as you do, and Frank has promised to help us with that, so we will
Of
get
course.
that done.
And also, Rickshaw is pretty busy now. They also still catching up
Yes,
with production. So.
correct. So yeah. So, Jasprit asks you, what were the highlights of your visit to Mumbai?
Dinner and drinks in the evening.
I was hoping you would say that.
Was a wonderful time.
Yeah, it really was a lovely time. Yeah, and he was there himself, so I'm pretty sure that was the answer he was expecting too.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Uh, we will just wait for a couple of minutes to see if there are any other questions coming in, Frank. Because the last time I saw, there were three questions in addition to what I saw.
Sure.
So we just give that. Uh, but otherwise, Frank, thank you so much for spending a Saturday evening with us. I will request my co-hosts to also come back on screen. And yeah, there they are.
Mhm.
Okay, it was wonderful to hear you speak about all these and answer all these questions. Your journey is, I will say, it's unique in its own way, but it's good fun to hear it. It's like a story, there is a story, but it's always good fun to hear that story from somebody else. So
True.
that's how it was, Frank. So thank you so much, Frank, for spending your Saturday evening.
Thank
Um,
you.
and Pradeep, Mihir, any closing comments from your side?
Thank you so much, Frank, for doing this with us. And I'm sure one of us is going to pester you for a Conid monarch soon enough. Probably me. Yeah. Thank you again, Frank. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And like Sudhir said, I really know, having lived in Europe for some time, I really know how important weekends are. And you spending the Saturday evening with us away from your family, that is really special. And we really take it as our privilege that you agreed to spend
Mhm.
so much of your precious time with us.
It's been a big honor.
Yes.
I'm really honored to be in the show and to talk with you all and answer questions and just have a chat. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Just a tiny little thing, Frank. A lot of us want to see Oscar. Is he around?
No, he's not around. It will take about no.
All right.
I will ask I will see if we have some pictures we can post on Instagram later.
That would be amazing. That would be
No
amazing.
problem.
Right. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Frank.
you so
Good
much,
night.
Frank.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Good night. And to all the viewers, thank you again for joining us on this wonderful session. And we will be hopefully coming back again and again on Saturdays because this seems to work well for most of our speakers. So, hope to see you all again on next Saturday. And until then, stay safe and have a fantastic weekend. And don't forget to share our links, guys. We need more viewers. We need more people from hobbyists, enthusiasts to come and watch these live sessions and interviews so they can learn from this. I hope you're enjoying these as well. So thank you again and do like and share and subscribe. So have a good night and take care. Bye.